We've come pretty far on this journey, and I have saved some of the most difficult speaking scenarios for last. This week's lesson is about impromptu speaking. Now, I know that impromptu speaking can be difficult for anyone who lacks confidence in their speaking ability. But I'm going to talk about some specific scenarios, let you understand what the parameters really are, hopefully, give you an opportunity to hurdle some of the anxiety that you might be feeling, and then also embrace techniques that really are your lifelines when you find yourself in these various scenarios. Let's take a look at the three most important and most consistent and frequent ones that you might find yourself in. I'm sure you all recognize these. The first is going around the room. Going around the room is that situation you find yourself in when you're at a conference or at a meeting where people get to introduce themselves and then tell us a little bit about you, tell us what it is you do, tell us why you're here today, any of those things. It is a feeling of impromptu speaking because you really didn't prepare it. However, in in comparison to the other two scenarios that you see here in the list, it is the one where you do have the most time to prepare. Though I do include it in this lesson on impromptu speaking because you don't always really know what it is you're going to say, just like you don't know what the request or the question is going to be. So that's scenario number one. Scenario number two is when you're in a Q&A, when you are the person who is fielding the questions and you have no idea what the question is going to be. Therefore, your answer is something that has to be impromptu based on your expertise. The reason this one is a little bit harder than going around the room is simply because of the amount of prep time. However, you're an expert in your subject. You will have a perspective, you will have an answer. The question will come from what you have been presenting and what you have been talking about for an extended amount of time. Therefore, the extension of this won't be that difficult. And it doesn't quite feel like impromptu speaking as much as maybe some of the other scenarios do, but yet it definitely qualifies. The most difficult is when you are simply put on the spot. There is no anticipation of what is going to be asked. You don't even know that you're going to be put on the spot. Unlike when you're going around the room, you can basically watch things move around and eventually become your turn. When you're put on the spot, that's the time when your technique and your real understanding of impromptu speaking come to the fore. So there are some techniques that we utilize. In fact, they are all of the techniques that we've talked about in prior lessons. Things like relying on your intuition to discover bumper stickers, utilizing listening behaviors, leveraging them, giving 3 reasons, also utilizing deliberate breathing as a shield against people thinking that you are frozen like a deer in the headlights. So all of these things really have to be in place. You really have to trust your intuition. You do have to trust your technique. So impromptu speaking is not the time to start practicing all of this. In order to be a good impromptu speaker, you have to have done your homework. Even though you don't know exactly what's coming next, and you're only a nanosecond or two ahead of what your thought process is, and therefore what it is that you're going to say. So let's look specifically at the techniques. We have deliberate breathing equals thinking. If you remember, I said that when you take a deliberate breath, you are sending the body language signal that you're thinking. When somebody has asked you to speak in an impromptu scenario, they don't expect that you're going to have an answer ready in a split second. You have permission to think about it because we do want to hear what your considered answer to that question or your considered response to that request would be. So, by taking a deliberate breath and then incorporating a second technique, which is what I call the look away. The look away is when you literally divert your eyes as if you are thinking to yourself. You are truly indicating that you're considering what comes next. What you're doing is you're buying time. You're buying just a few seconds for you to be able to scan your thoughts for what will eventually be the opening statement of whatever it is you're going to say. Another technique for buying some time is to repeat the request or repeat the question. By doing this and knowing that these are some of the tools that you have at your disposal, you will be able to give your mind time to go through the process of discovering what your bumper sticker is. So, a lot of this is trusting your intuition, pushing aside that voice that's telling you, oh my goodness, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? And trust that there is something that you can say. And that bumper sticker, that perspective is there. You just have to discover what it is. So, again, deliberate breathing indicates that you're thinking. Looking away further indicates that you're in deep thought about what you're going to say next. If you want to gesture as well, that's an even more multi-level technique where you are sending a body language signal that you're really thinking about what comes next. The last thing, again, repeating the question or repeating the request can help to buy you some time. So you will be trusting your intuition. You have to be able to run with your first gut reaction. And when I say your gut reaction, it's important that you do that breathing because when we're put on the spot, we truly do feel that fight or flight physical response. So you want to begin to mitigate that by taking a deep breath. The deep breath also gets you in touch with your impulses. We talked about that deliberate breathing being a tie-in to discovering the impulses that lead to gesturing. It is also what keeps your body grounded, keeps you here, keeps you low where your gut reaction is coming from. That's where you'll discover that bumper sticker. Don't forget to follow the strong framework. That will make whatever your response is seem so much more structured and again will feed into listening satisfaction. Now, these are all emergency measures when you are literally put on the spot. But when you are also the receiver of a question and being responsible to give the answer, use these techniques as well so that you're able to scan your expertise, your understanding, your perspective to come up with a clear statement that, again, will satisfy the question, will satisfy the listening preferences of your listeners. Even when you are in the experience of going around the room, don't sit and second guess yourself over and over and over again. Go with your first gut reaction and explore it. You may have 5, 10, 15 minutes before it's your turn to be the person who delivers whatever that might be, an introduction, a short story, your perspective, a little bit of a bio on yourself, whatever that might be. But again, make sure that you utilize bumper stickers, make sure that you utilize 3 reasons and a strong framework. The next thing is make sure that you keep it brief. Understand that the expectations of impromptu speaking are not that you're going to get up and give a dissertation. You're not going to stand up there and speak for 20 minutes, even though you are an expert. You're expected to just give your perspective. The brevity of that is an expectation. So don't feel you have to fill up a lot of space. Now, I can understand if speaking anxiety is causing you to speed up and your mind to race and you're just grabbing at thoughts. That's why it's so important to do that breathing, utilize the look away, repeat the request if appropriate, and then deliver a strong framework. And remember, if you do, in the course of giving your opinion, leave out important information or suddenly think of something else, by creating that framework, you'll be able to move in between the levels. Remember, the levels are bumper sticker at the top, 3 supportive reasons in the middle, details down in the weeds. You're really not going to be expected to go into the weeds all that much, but do move between the levels. And then, so that you feel satisfied that you're done, so that you signal to everyone else that you're done, and so that everyone else is satisfied with the completion of your idea, make sure you return to the bumper sticker and close the loop. So those are just a bit of the techniques and some of the advice that I give for impromptu speaking. As you can see, it truly is the highest form of speech technique. It is all of these different aspects of your technique on display, and you're being asked to do it very, very quickly. That's why I say with every presentation, really with every speaking situation, business communication scenario you find yourself in, practice following these best practices because they will assist you when you find yourself in an impromptu speaking situation.